Call the meeting to order at 5:32. I feel a little awkward. Guys are scared to be up front. Well, no, I mean, it's like the firing line.
When it comes to by you.
No, I wouldn't want you to now, Joe. So anyways, it's 5:32. We have three boards. We have West River, River Valley, Marlboro. We have 5 from West River. We have 1 from River Valley, and both are Marlboro reps.
Rich, are you recording? I want to make sure that I didn't see that notice here, but make sure the recording.
You're recording, right?
Yes, it's recording. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so are there any changes to the agenda? From board, all you guys all good? TV land all good? Get some thumbs up. Okay, who's in the upper right?
Rachel.
Rachel. Thank you, Rachel. Okay, I want to just, first thing, I'm going to change one little thing on the agenda. I just want to make a quick statement, and then we'll go to members of the public, and then we're going to do the MTSS audit, and then I'll look at the budget. So I just felt that I think it's important that there's been a lot of work done and a lot of meetings that we've had recently. And I just want to clarify, because I've actually, for the first time ever in my life, had people actually ask me what was going on and what was happening with the SU, which is surprising. The budget was presented to the WCSU full board at a duly warned meeting that was open to the public in November. The budget was unanimously approved by all the WCSU board members who attended. It was also available through Zoom, as well as recorded and posted by BCTV. The timing of approving the WCSU budget has been in November, with some going into the beginning of December if there were questions or concerns, since before I was chairman. This was originally done so that the Leland and Gray budget group would know the SU assessments as he prepared for their budget. At some point several years ago, the SU board did agree to not adopt the agency fee budget until after the Leland and Gray and local budgets are approved, so that if a budget was rejected or reduced, that would allow the local boards that made up the Leland and Gray Union the possibility to adjust their budgets if the need arose. I was actually at a request of Al when he was chairman of the Townsend board. Several factors this year caused the West River board budget group to request that the WCSU board look at the SU budget to see if there could be any cost savings. Although not a unanimous vote, the SU board did agree to hear the concerns and look at the budget. The SU office has put in considerable time in answering questions, meeting with concerned parties about the SU budget, and has taken the concerns seriously. The SU board stated at the meeting that they did not vote to take another look at the budget based on a concern that the superintendent or chief financial officer had done anything that caused concern. Several SU board members expressed appreciation for the work and transparency of the administration on its budget work. I personally am not aware of any changes in the administration or SU cabinet that was not either approved by the SU board, or after being brought to the attention of the SU board, it was decided by that group that the change was an administrative function, and to properly run the SU, there may need to be a reassignment or change in duties of central office administration, staff, and employees made by the superintendent. Lastly, the superintendent brought to the SU board that he wanted to have a review of the MTSS budget and to look to see if there could be other efficiencies. However, the review could not be concluded prior to the needed adoption of the SU budget. This reopening of the budget did give the central office time to review the report that was completed after this vote to reopen the budget, and we will hear a report on that review tonight. That's the first item under new business. As SU chair, I've worked with 6 different superintendents and have the utmost confidence in Bob and this business office, and have seen nothing that would bring into question his dedication, honesty, or ethics he has brought to the SU and work on this budget. And he has at least my complete confidence as our educational leader. And it was just, again, after some comments and concerns that people had asked me about, I just wanted to make sure that the SU staff and that the Windham Central people knew that we do have faith in you, Bob, and Heidi, and feel that you're doing a good job by us.
You got both my names right too, which is good. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Hey. So anyways, members of the public, so I'll go for those of you that came live first. Paul, here's a packet for you. So, anybody, Drew, you wanna go first, or you wanna wait?
Anyway, Drew Hamilton from Jamaica, also on the West River board. So I guess you probably heard enough about my concerns about the budget over the last couple of meetings, and I still have concerns and unanswered questions and pieces of information that I've still not been able to get my hands on to evaluate. I did have an opportunity to hear from some of the constituents. Peter had actually made a recommendation at the last board meeting that maybe we should survey the public and kind of learn about what their feelings are. And I had the opportunity to do that, so I did. Unfortunately, the response was so overwhelming to the survey that it actually shut down the free survey tool I was using, and unfortunately limited some people's ability to participate in the survey. But it was good information, and it certainly supports the position that I put out, which is that the public is concerned about lack of transparency in the budget process. The public majority of the respondents are concerned with the weight of the administration in the SU, and certainly some other questions that I'll be bringing up as part of the West River budget process. But I'm still concerned that we have a transparency issue in the way that the process is done. I know that Rich has made his thoughts known, but the fact that this is the first time people have reached out to you would be concerning to me, that we're not doing enough to engage the public in the process of budgeting. I did get a little sneak peek by logging into the executive committee meeting this morning, and I'm concerned that once again we're going to be shuffling cups and moving money in a way that is going to make it so that we are even more top heavy than we need to be. So I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Sir?
No comments.
No? Back row? Both of you knows? I can't see that well.
No, I'm good.
You're all set? Okay. TV land. Let me go, let's see. Susan, Abby Pelton. Just the one page. Yep. Abby, you have anything for public? Chris's iPhone, anything? Oh, go ahead, Abby, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I just couldn't get my phone to unmute fast enough. I apologize.
No problem.
No, I do not have anything for public on this.
Okay, thank you. Chris's iPhone. Not sure who Chris is.
Chris Jers Townsend, and nope, just here to listen. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Alan Block.
Hi, Rich. I'm here to listen and take notes.
Okay, I think you're here to make sure your wife does a good job in her notes, huh?
She always does a good job. I don't have to monitor her.
Okay. Brendan McGrail. Brendan, yeah.
Yep, Rebecca and I are on as well, listening and taking notes.
Okay, no comment?
No comments.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
sir. Carrie Towle? Toll, I'm sorry.
No comments, just listening, thank you.
Okay, Mark Schauba.
Not at this time, thanks, Rich.
Chrissy Haskins.
No comments right now,
Did
just
we-
listening, thank you.
We lost somebody too. Michael Pelton, I believe. Michael P.
No comment for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Keegan Eaker.
Keegan Eaker, no comments from me. I'm just here to listen. Thank you.
Okay. Greg, you all set?
All set, sir.
Okay. So new business, MTSS audit results. So as I stated earlier in my comments, Bob approached us earlier in the year to in the budgeting process that when they did the, when the state of Vermont made their big changes to how we fund special education, MTSS, it was kind of we did the first half of it, but we never really audited what we had done. So Bob was able to find a person to do an audit for us to look at our MTSS, and Bob, I'll let you take it from there. And we got the results last week.
Yeah. So, thanks, Rich. I did meet with the executive committee of the board back in the fall. Talked about my reasoning for doing an audit on our MTS systems. In short, the special ed law change allowed some flexibility in spending and how special ed could be blended with other sources of revenue to do intervention for students. And I had some thoughts about how it was happening or not happening, and I feel like we, in talking with people around the state, it seems as though the state did a great job of changing the financial end of that law and having the, hold on, I'm just gonna let somebody in here, changing it to the census block grant on how we receive money for special education, which is no longer based on a service plan model, which was every kid gets tracked of what they need, and that has a funded dollar amount attached to it. That's how funding happened. Now it was just sort of, you have X number of kids, and that's how much money you get. And so that was a reduction in funding. We've seen that over the years, and it will, one more year, I think, of drop before it will level out. Yeah. But the second half of the law, which was about how the services are provided and the potential to have some flexibility in having a blended delivery model, was, trying to say this in a way that isn't too harsh, but I would say the Agency of Education dropped the ball on how to deliver technical assistance to schools and districts on how to do that effectively. And granted, COVID was happening, so they had other things going on, but that support never really came. And so my concern was that we were still operating much the same way we had been operating, which was a very siloed approach. We have some gen ed on one side, special ed on the other. We had added academic support teachers to help with interventions, but those three levels really were not in any way blended, or the phrase I was using was siloed. And so the purpose of the audit was to find out to what degree was my thinking correct, if at all, and if so, what recommendations could we come out of that with, and how we could make some changes to our system to ensure that all kids got what they need, regardless of how they were labeled, and putting that in quotes, because really the essence of what we're trying to do here is ensure that our universal instruction, what happens in every classroom, is sound and of high quality. And if that's the case, the vast majority of students should get what they need from that. And then the students that don't can get sort of some additional interventions. And then the students that don't respond to those interventions would really get some intensive work through special education. So trying to think about how we want to do that and how we want to think about that. And so we tried a couple different vendors to try to find someone to do the audit, including DMG, who had done the initial analysis of special ed back in the state prior to 137 and 173. And they were quite expensive, and for a small SU like ours, it seemed prohibitive to spend the kind of money that they were looking for to do an analysis. So I kept looking. A couple other companies, including the one that the state now works with, K-12 Solutions, where Nate Levinson, who used to be in DMG and who was one of the folks who was involved in writing the law, now works, found that to be also really expensive for a small SU. And one of the things coming out of this is we wanted to spend some money to do this work, but we didn't want to spend more than what we would potentially find in savings. That didn't really make a lot of sense. So we ended up finding through the VSA a retired or a non-working superintendent, so a person who had been a superintendent who left the field as a consultant to do this work. And so over the course of the month of January, interviewed over 20 staff from all the buildings, from all different positions, from elementary to middle to high, special ed to general ed to AST to administration to central office folks, and then created a report for me on what his recommendations were. And there's a lot more to it than just what I'm going to talk about tonight, but this is really step one. And so his assessment was similar to what I had in my head, which was that we were too siloed. And so his recommendation was to restructure the org chart such that instead of having an organization that was really, 3 directors or 3 people who are doing separate things in that realm, restructure that into a system where you have one person who's at the top, who's sort of an executive director of MTSS, and then under that you would have special education, curriculum instruction, and SEL, equity and wellness. So for me, in thinking about that, also as the SU budget had been reopened, thinking about, well, what does that mean? So for me, what that means is a recommendation to do this, follow this plan through, creation of a job description for this executive director position. This is a new position, so this would be a full public search for someone to fill that. In the meantime, we would eliminate a couple of positions or blend a couple of positions to create this model. So the assistant director of special education, which was in the budget and unfilled, would go away. The equity coordinator position would go away and replaced with director of SEL, equity and wellness. And one of the other elements of the report where we had significant gaps was through RSEL. It's not really coordinated enough to have a lot of impact on students. SEL stands for social emotional learning. And the idea there, if you're familiar with sort of like a Maslow's type hierarchy, is that students can't learn unless they've met certain needs first. And for Maslow, that was, food, shelter, clothing, warmth, all those kinds of things. For students, for SEL, it's really about safety, emotional, physical safety. Sometimes maybe food's part of that for families that have food scarcity at home. But thinking about how to ensure that we have appropriate supports for those social emotional needs in our buildings, behavioral supports, and so that teachers can teach and that the kids are getting not only support for those kids who need extra instruction in those areas, but universal instruction for SEL for all students. And so that was the model here. So that would be the other new position, but again, in essence, replacing the equity coordinator position. So elimination in a sense of the curriculum coordinator position, and having a curriculum instruction director under this executive director of MTS. So if you look at the 2 charts, you go from, in essence, 5 positions to 4. Some of them will be the same people, some of them would be new positions that would be reposted. Obviously, people who are in those positions currently can apply for them, but there would be public searches with full committees under my direction. And then once the executive director for MTSS would be hired, then that person would be coordinating the search for the other ones that need to get filled. So that is my sense. The operational side of the org chart, operations, finance, IT would stay separate. It's not part of the instructional side. So that you can see is still on the left, sort of hanging out there as well. So that is the idea. I think that if you would ask me to look ahead and to think about what that could reveal moving forward, because I also know some of the other things that we need to be thinking about, which is how to ensure that Tier 1 instruction is of a high quality, how to make sure our PD is aligned to do all the things we're trying to get it to do, how to ensure that all the kids have equitable access to all of this. Those things, as you begin to unfold this and unpack this, I wouldn't be shocked to find that as we start to blend and think about these things more systemically, that there could be future savings. Obviously, I think that's something that should be thought about as the model that they talked about with 173 was that, yeah, there's going to be less money, but if you do things better, then there's less need. And I think that's true. If you have a really high quality classroom instruction, there's less need. But the kids we have right now, there's a lot of challenges. And I've said this before, and it gets repeated a lot, but COVID changed schooling. it completely changed it. It was not a 1-year thing or a 2-year thing with remote schooling, and then everything was fine after that. You could ask these guys who are in classrooms over here; they'll tell you. Behaviors changed, student needs changed, parenting changed. How we think about a lot of things changed, and so to approach the new challenges of education, public education, with the same old system coming out of that just doesn't make a lot of sense. So reimagining and rethinking about how we could do this in a more systemic approach to support our kids, to me, makes the most sense. And regardless of whether or not we were opening up the budget, this was something that I was going to be doing and thinking about moving forward. This is the focus of my work. This is why I'm here, is to ensure that every kid gets a high quality education. And so we eliminate barriers for that to occur, and that provides kids an opportunity to escape generational poverty and to find careers that they can be successful in after schooling. So, I mean, we're not doing that. What are we doing, right? So that's, I guess that's the nuts and bolts of the presentation. And again, it led to some efficiencies, which I think you'll see when we get to the Heidi side of this dog and pony show. I think you're the pony, I'm the dog. Yeah, happy to take any questions about that.
Anybody local?
Are we shifting personnel to fill these roles?
So some of the positions are new and will have new job descriptions and therefore would be posted and had full searches for. And some of them have existing people who are in them that are in them. So I'll just use an example. A special ed director is Stephanie. So she would stay as the student services director. If she chose to apply for the executive director position, she could, then we would fill under her. Same with Jen. But those positions would be then filled afterwards. But they would basically have, in a sense, rights to those two positions, the lower tier of them. And then my conversations with Lindsay, the equity coordinator, that she recognizes that this is a pretty different job than supervisory capacity, shared supervisory capacity with counselors and nurses, with the principals. And she recognizes that that's different, and she would have to apply for that separately.
Well, I was just kind of wondering why we don't put the director of curriculum in as the executive director. Use your existing people already.
I mean, maybe
that's
what
you were thinking, Bob?
Well, it might be that she's interested in doing that and applying for it, but I want there to be a full and open process. And I think that that's only fair to everybody, to ensure that we have the best possible candidate in that position, whether it's her, whether it's somebody else. She knows that. We've talked, and I think she agrees with me that that's the way to do it.
So just for a quick clarification here, so you're saying the current positions of the equity coordinator, the curriculum coordinator, and the just those two. So those positions would be the ones changing, and those two people would no longer be in positions unless they were rehired.
They would not be. Yeah, they would have to be applying for jobs as they were vacant. The assistant special ed director, the position would go away completely.
Right.
Yeah.
The only position that's the same in both org charts is the student services. Everything else has changed.
I mean, the curriculum instruction position is still. I mean, I would assume that would be Jen's to give up, and Stephanie would have the student services one to give, because those positions are going to be very, very similar to the ones that they're in now. The curriculum instruction one is probably more right now of a blend of what Jen and Renee are doing, but in essence, it would, it makes sense to have her have that first right of refusal. It's the other two that would have open postings.
You all set, sir?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Joe?
Yeah. I understand. We'll see if anybody else.
No, I will. I get to that. Paul, do you want? I got Emily, Al, Kate, and Dan and Rachel. Any of you just chime right up?
I'm happy to step in if unless you want to go first, Al. I don't know. It's up to you. Okay. So I just want to thank Bob and his staff for first, long time ago, asking for this audit, because I think that it was very timely and important. And I'm grateful that that you had the foresight to do that. And I see this as a direct, all of this appears to be a direct reaction to the outcome of that audit. So I just want to say thanks for that. And then I will continue to advocate for making sure that our schools, both our SU and schools, both students and staff, are getting the support they need around equity and inclusion, and making sure that the supports are there as needed for our students, because we know, just like every SU in the state, there have been challenges. Maybe some are directly related to the concerns that Bob just expressed about COVID and the changes that's made in our schools. But I just want to make sure that our staff and our students have the supports they need. So I appreciate you continuing to support that. Thanks.
Al, did you have some?
No, to say well said, Emily. It appears as though that structure will support what you need to do and want to do, and what's best for our students. So appreciate it. Thank you.
So Kate, Rachel, or Dan?
I just want to say thanks to you, Rich, for your opening statement. I felt that was it captured exactly the way I felt about it. So thanks to you, Rich.
Okay, and then on Bob's reorg chart, you all good?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. Same with you, Rachel. Thank you. Kate?
Yes.
That makes sense to me. I think I just echoing what Emily said about making sure that the students of the SU and the staff of the SU have what they need to be successful and to do well in this post-COVID world. Thank you.
Okay, so I got two questions for you, Bob.
Sure.
So the number one question is, with our new language program, we brought in somebody to help with that. Where are they in this chart?
Oh, the EL curriculum?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it would still fall under curriculum instruction.
Okay. And so that would still be covered under, that's still all set in this plan. We still have that.
Yep, I believe the
assistance that we need
supports
for
are
the
there.
staff.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. And then the second question is when would all this start? And one of the things that we were looking for, and with the silos was, is we've discussed several times, it's like the MTSS, we're not sure. We always have people there, and we're doing a lot of supports, and some people go out of district and some go in. So when does that review happen?
So do you mean like really thinking about like on the more the ground level stuff, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
so
how many people we have,
Yeah.
in that budget? That
Sure.
budget's a pretty huge budget.
It
It's
is.
more than almost all our other budgets together.
Yep.
And one of the things as we've discussed is we're not sure, because it's such a confusing budget. Do we have everything we need? Do we have too much? Do we have not enough? And who's auditing all the all the plans to see where we're going? And I know it's easier in a SU district versus an SU setup like us, where if you had all the students in one building, it may be easier because two people maybe will handle. But if I've got one student in 5 buildings, I'm going to need 5 people.
Yeah. So I mean, this is the challenge. I mean, this is why the state language right now is about small schools. People are talking about small schools because they're not cost effective to run. Right. There's lots of other benefits that we all know about, but they're expensive to run. And the reason is just as you described, because the numbers aren't necessarily there and the economy of scale isn't necessarily there. But just to kind of back up a little bit, the way that this works for special education and for academic support teachers is that those folks are all SU employees. And as the money flows into the SU per statute, the SU then assigns those people to be in buildings based on the need in those buildings. And that's a fluid thing. That can change from year to year. There's been some changes to that. You find one building that needs a little bit more, you take it away. This one doesn't need as much. And you send the resources to where they're needed based on the kids. This model wouldn't change that. In fact, it would enhance that. because now you have a team approach to doing that rather than people in individual silos doing that. So in the past, special ed's staffing was driven obviously by IEPs, but also by the special ed director and just assigning those places. Same with AST. It would be Jen who would make those decisions, and staff would be assigned to locations based on student need and both these would be in consultation with principals. But now you have it more as a team approach to doing this. And so, for example, that if you decide that you have, in a building you had 2 special educators and 2 ASTs, and you realize that, you know what, now that we're going to start to think about this from a blended model, maybe we don't need 4 people doing that. Maybe we need 3 people doing that. And maybe over time, as tier 1 instruction improves in that location, maybe only 2. So it really depends on the needs of the building, but I do see that having this team approach to how they look at it, I don't want to say checks and balances, but it does provide for multiple sets of eyes working together to collaborate to ensure that the kids are getting what they need, as Emily was pointing out. So I think it's a win-win in that regard. I think it's going to help us down the road as well. I don't know if that fully answered your question.
No. So then the next part of my question was the when.
When? So, I mean, there's 2 parts to this. So, as we're going to post this position, and as I mentioned, there could be some internal people that might be interested in that position. And if one of those internal people were to get that position, then you could really start doing some of that analysis a lot earlier this spring. If you're bringing in an external person to do that analysis, there's a good chance that they're under contract, or maybe not. Maybe they leave their current job. Maybe they aren't. Or maybe they're in a position where they could leave and come and join us earlier. I don't know. But yeah, I think we would, as soon as we have the people in place, we would start. But at the latest, it would be July 1.
Okay, so how does it affect this year's budget?
Great question. So, I don't know, is that just a segue to Heidi, or do you want to?
Well, I don't know. So
I got one more question.
Okay.
We
Is it a
brought
good one?
Yeah, this is a good one. This is executive director at MTS. Would this person be like your second in command?
From the academic side, for sure, yeah.
Compliance?
The compliance piece that we've talked about
Because
earlier
we
would
had
still.
holes
Yep.
in the compliance, so they would fill the compliance role.
Yeah, a lot of the work, because the funding is tied to how you use the funding, so the grant management side of it and the programming of the grant management side is all sort of interconnected between the business office and the curriculum office. So that would fall in this person's chair because they would be responsible for the whole package. And I don't know, I'm not exactly sure how it will work with EAB and with census block grant, but maybe there'll be some tie into that as well because the funding is still all flowing through one place. We just have to stop thinking about it as like this bucket of money serves this and this bucket of money serves this. The buckets of money come into one bucket and that serves everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just a mindset. It's like, it just seems simple, but it's tough when it's not how it's been, you have to kind of break that thinking. So this de-siloing, if you will help create that team opportunity to do that work.
Okay. Good question. Thank you. Is there any other questions from the board?
I'm unsure whether or not it will be answered when Heidi presents. So if it is, then I would be happy
Why
to
don't you
just
ask
move
it?
on.
Well, if it's something.
Yeah,
that
I'm
she's
curious on what the budget implications are for this organizational chart, this new one.
So comparing the top one to the
Yes.
bottom. Okay. Can we hold that for just 1 second?
That will definitely be in her presentation.
Okay. Sir, you got anything else?
Well, with the siloing, if we go away from that, is there implications on state and federal requirements for how money is spent? Like right now, and this whole thing could be blown up in the next few months, depending on what goes on in Washington and the action crew down there, but where are we with that?
Yeah, so I think, what happened in Vermont with 173 several years ago is that it provided the opportunity for us to do some blending. There are some limits to that, right? Mm-hmm. So what we've tried to do, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, what we've tried to do is target the money that is really not blendable, if that's the best way to put it,
Sure.
more towards the ECSC side, because those students typically are not receiving gen ed services, because we're providing special ed services to people in private pre-Ks, for example, OT, PT, SLPs, occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, and
And there's technically no reimbursement for special ed for the
yeah, physical therapy. And ECSE is the early childhood special ed. So we're trying to channel that money into the places where it's less likely to need to be blended. And so that's kind of that's how we're kind of responding to that. So we're not violating a federal law. We're following what the state is doing though. Now, if it happens at the state or federal level, things get hacked, then there'll be even fewer regulations because there'll be less money. So that would even open things up more. Not that we're asking for that, but that's, I think this reorg wouldn't be impacted by that. It would just mean maybe there's more flexibility.
I think there's also the piece that certainly for some Medicaid billing or some other types of special ed billing, we have to make sure that there's some certain oversight by certain certified individuals, which will happen with oversight in this.
Yeah, the Medicaid thing is the other piece. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And everybody I don't know if you got it because I wrote Bob a little note here, but just make sure don't use the letters tell us. So ECSE is early childhood. Okay. You guys good? TV land, you folks all good?
Yeah.
Anybody? Going once, going twice? Okay.
Rich, we had put discussion possible action. I didn't know if that was something you guys needed
that's
to
what I think we
approve or not.
So hang on a second, because I was going to cover that next.
Okay.
So I guess there's a couple things that kind of how we're going to go about this. So some of this ties into the budget. So there are some budget discussions like Peter asked. And then there is also, we also want to look at the budget too. This change is a pretty substantial change. It isn't just having a little bit less in the business office and that person taking on some HR responsibilities. So I believe that this is something that we as a board are going to want to approve. And this is the first chance we're getting to look at it. So I don't know, is everybody comfortable with approving this, or do we want to meet again in a couple weeks, and if there's any questions that come up, and then vote on it then? It's not as big a change as like when we decided to do away with the assistant superintendent and go to two curriculum directors, but it is a pretty big change. So how does the board feel about that? Would you want to vote on this tonight, or would you like to let this gel a little bit and then vote on it? And we're about at the right time where people are looking for jobs, so we don't want to put it off till June or July if we want to get good candidates. So
yeah, I mean, my dream would be to be able to start posting this immediately.
Tomorrow, yeah. But so I'll poll you guys on TV land first. Go ahead.
Vote tonight.
Emily?
Vote tonight.
Who's that?
That's Rachel.
Rachel. Emily now?
Al's hand was up.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, definitely vote tonight.
Okay.
Agreed.
Kate?
I like to digest things, but if we need to move forward tonight to get the ball rolling, we can do that too.
Okay, how about Paul and Peter, you guys? It's good with me.
I'm like Kate, I like to digest, but I'll digest fast.
Sir?
I could understand doing it tonight.
Okay. Sir, you're good tonight? Okay, so since it does have some financial implications, I'd like to sit on this for a minute, and I'd like to talk about, I'd like to answer your question and then talk about how it applies to the budget, or what it's going to do to the budget. So.
And Rich, I left a little narrative for you right there while you were talking.
Did you leave? Do you guys have this
I
in the
just
back?
handed out. I left some on the table. if
Do
anybody
you,
wants to
do you
grab
mind
some.
just passing them out back?
So, yeah, I'll get us started, then you can take us into the weeds a little bit.
Well, why don't we start with the MTSS while that's fresh in our minds?
Absolutely. So if you go to the MTSS budget section, removal of the unfilled position for that assistant, salary benefits position was a total of $146,668, and so that would be coming out of the budget. That would impact the budget starting, it was originally at 8.4, would bring it down to 8.3 and change the year-over-year increase from a little over 7% to almost 5.25%. And that would bring, due to the reduction in the federal funds, it would bring the total increase down to 14.17, which was initially at 18.65 when it was adopted back in November.
Okay, but just so that we've got this right, so the executive director of MTSS seems like a position we don't have. It's got a little higher. So do we think that with these other other positions that are currently being funded, the equity, the director of curriculum, director of student services, curriculum coordinator, those four, how are those four salaries going to compare to the four salaries you are now proposing?
We didn't build in any extra for that. I mean, it's possible based on the candidate that it could be up a little bit, I suppose, but we didn't have that at all for this.
No, I mean, there was increases for salaries for next year.
Were built in anyway, so.
So I would think that with the rearranging, we'd be pretty close to what we are expecting, or what we would have been expecting without this position.
I mean, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. Anybody here have any questions on the MTSS portion that they just explained? And does that answer your question? That was originally yours.
I was gonna say, no, that does answer my question. So you were not planning, as of right now, of increasing that budget due to this organizational chart.
Decrease, yeah.
In fact, decreasing it due to the reduction of the assistant special ed.
Yep.
Thank you. That does answer my question.
Okay. And that includes benefits too, the 146s. That's not strictly
Right, that's
salary.
everything. I went down through FICA,
Okay.
the whole 9 yards.
And we won't know until we actually hire whether they have family plan. Okay.
Exactly.
Anybody else have any questions on the financial and thought on Peter's? That's all set. TV Land, are you all okay? See some head shaking. Nobody's jumping up. Does that give you all enough to at least vote on Section A, the MTSS audit results in a reorganization? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Sure. I think I would make a motion to, accept the reorganization plan from the MTSS audit.
Sure, that will work for me.
That work? All right.
That works
Yeah,
for
I'll
me.
make that motion.
Would anybody like to second that?
I'll second it. This is Dan.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second. So the motion is to accept the proposed organization chart versus the current chart. So you get to speak first, Joe. You have any comments, questions?
I think I don't have any questions. I'm pleased to see that, this audit that's been in the works for a little while came in with the perfect timing here to give us this opportunity. And, thanks for the good work looking out for us before we even knew there was a problem.
Dan, you made the second on the motion. You get second dibs at it.
I want to second what Joe just said.
Cool. Can you repeat it word for word?
Don't have to. He's already got it.
Okay. You, Dan, Dana, Paul, Peter? Yep.
I very much like the idea of this, it coming out of this audit that you did. My biggest worry, kind of what my questions were leading to, is that this is going to end up increasing when we end up hiring these people. Is that you're gonna come back to us and say, hey, because of these people, we increased the budget, and I'm very much quite worried about that. However, I think that you have all the right ideas and intentions with this, so I'm gonna go out on a limb and trust that you guys will really try to make sure that this does not increase our budget. The whole idea of this is to help make your operation more efficient, not increase the operation. All right, thank you.
And thank you for that comment. TV Land, Kate, or Rachel, Al, Emily, go ahead.
I just wanted to follow up on that comment, that just to remind everybody that, especially with special ed, things are very fluid all the time, and we can't know what we're going to be facing down the road. So I think it's just really important that we recognize the challenges are great, and we're trying to meet the needs of our kids and our communities and our families. And that's what I think this does. So thanks.
Anybody else? Al, Rachel, Kate? Okay, I got Drew. We're this is for the board, so we gave you public comment. Hang on one second. I think the other comment I want to make though is that although this is going to show up in the MTSS budget, unfortunately, as we've been trying to explain for the last few meetings, is that these 4 positions, the student services, curriculum, SEL, and executive director, are going to show up in different spots. They don't all 100% of anybody's salary is not going to show up where we can point at the income, because, or is that, am I wrong in that?
I think, so currently there is some of Jen's position that is under the CFP.
Well, let's not talk names, let's talk positions.
I'm talking names only because that's clear on the org chart.
Director of curriculum.
Right. So whoever becomes into the executive director of MTSS, we potentially might use some federal title funds. It's unclear right now how, we have a certain amount that we're expecting that's going to cover the majority of the 50% of AST's staff, but there could be a potential of putting some of that executive director into those title funds. That's all I wanted to say.
But the assistant student services job that was reduced,
we took
the
that
curriculum
out.
coordinator and the equity coordinator
Are only in the
director of
MTSS.
curriculum are almost entirely MTSS.
Right.
The other ones were all MTSS.
That's well.
So these would remain
The director of curriculum also had a piece of the supers budget.
right 0.2 or something. Yeah.
Right.
So. But the other ones were already in MTSS.
That's correct.
So
Yes. Okay.
Right, this one.
I just
There wouldn't be shifts other
There's
places
still
necessarily.
some compliance, so we have to
That
make some.
one might 0.2 might stay in.
Right. That's
Right.
what.
What I want to do is Peter's comment was, I don't want to say that, okay, MTSS budget went down 150, but all of a sudden the superintendent's budget went up 150, because that makes it confusing. So that was my only comment or question, not a comment, it's a question. Okay, so Drew is a board member on West River. He's not an SU board member. Does anybody on the board have a problem that Drew, do you have a comment or a question, Drew? Okay, does anybody have a problem if Drew was to make a comment? Drew brought a lot of this up, so we have given him a little bit more leeway than we would just a member of the public or the press. Even though he may be working for the press.
No complaints, please.
Is everybody's okay with that? No, if there's no objections, going once, twice. Go ahead, boss.
Just the vague wording of the motion, though it makes sense to the board, is not easy to understand from the public perspective, that what you're doing is recruiting positions. So again, as someone that's been back from the resident minutes for the last few years, it would be more transparent to the public if the board was to make a motion to hire or authorize the hiring of certain positions, because as you're looking through and reading minutes, it's very difficult to see something as presented, which means then you must have to go through and either look at a video or read narratives. So a vague motion like that is not easily understood by the public.
Okay, I think Meredith or can somebody read the motion back to us or tell us what the motion was? Because I thought
I just said to approve the changes, proposed changes from the MTSS audit.
Okay, so if we were to state the current organizational chart, are you okay to amend your motion to do that? Because then they can look at the organizational chart that we would present it, and we would be part of the motion, and then there's no question.
Yeah. I mean, if so, we say we now take the equity coordinator position, the director of
I think that's gonna be
position,
even more confusing.
you know.
So I think if we were to just say this organizational chart and that we put this in the, attaches to the minutes.
Okay,
to the
yeah, that's
agenda,
fine. That makes
I think
sense.
this explains it all. Would everybody be okay with that? Does that make sense to everybody? Drew, that would be pretty clear. Okay. Does anybody, Dan, do you mind amending?
No, not a bit. Please do. Yes.
Okay, would you just amend your motion?
To include the org chart that was presented in the minutes? Certainly.
Okay. And Dan, you're gonna second the amendment?
I do.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Are you all set, Drew? Okay, so if there's no other discussion, let's vote on the amendment first, since it was an amendment, I know, but we want to do it right. So, all those in favor of amending the motion to include the current organizational chart, and I will mark one and initial it after the vote and give it to Bob for the official minutes. All those in favor of the amendment, you're not voting on the original motion, you're just voting to amend the motion, say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Okay, it appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. Okay, it is a unanimous decision, I hear no objections. So now the main motion is to amend, we amended. The main motion now is to reorganize as per the organizational chart that we presented tonight. Is there any discussion, any more discussion on the main motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. I hear no objections, so the motion passes. Today is 2/10/25 at 6:23 p.m. Joe, do me a favor, just initial that too. Whoops, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's go now to a new look at the SU budget. So we do have the narrative for the budget. So the MTSS has been taken care of. So
With no other changes though.
okay, in the MTSS.
No other changes to MTSS.
Okay, so you did want to add $10,000.
So so talk about we talked about this. I mentioned it last time about how the idea of transparency had come up on the website, and this also we'd had some challenges with the website stuff with file sharing, which led to a data breach earlier in the year. We've had our IT department kind of look at the website with an eye on data management, an eye on accessibility, making sure we're compliant with ADA. There are a lot of schools and districts being sued these days for not having compliant websites. And really just thinking about just it's been built on and built on and built on and built on, and it needs like a new foundation. And so I had asked Matt about the idea, like what would it cost to have that redone. We talked about River Valley's had spent 30-ish or more on a website that did not include file management, it was just straight informational website. And so it would probably be a lot more than that. Matt is fairly confident that he can do this in-house and have that hopefully up and running by the fall. He wanted to have a little bit of an insurance policy just in case. And so if the staff was taxed to the extent where doing this was more than what his existing staff could handle, that he would have some ability to do some stipending for additional time of the existing staff to finish that project in a timely manner. So we thought that if we had a $10,000 buffer in the super's budget, which is where IT sits, to allow for that work to get done, it may not be needed, but it was Matt's assessment that it would be good to have just something just in case we, you never know, something comes up, staff leave, like you don't have the manpower, so you want to be able to make sure you can do that. So that was the only change in the super's budget. And so that changed the overall expenditures. You can see from 2.098 to 2.1. that reduced the year-over-year decrease. In other words, grew it from 4.73% decrease to a 4.2% decrease. So still a decrease in the super's budget overall from last year, even with that add. And that was the only change in the super's budget.
Okay, so any comments or questions, thoughts, you guys in here? Go ahead, sir.
And I realize that this is probably not going to be as clear cut as I want it to be. I'm learning that finances.
That's a great starting question. I love it. Okay.
Never are. But in the West River, the West River Education District, we are actually looking at having a surplus in our budget, correct? Is there no way that we can use some of that surplus to accomplish this extra security funding rather than adding in more funding, but using the surplus?
Yeah, I mean, so the only challenge is you're talking about two different budgets, two different districts. So the SU is the website that was in question. It's where all the board documents reside that Drew was talking about in previous meetings. And that is separate from West River, different entity altogether.
Could the West River donate their money towards?
No,
Check with Drew on that one.
You're donating your money anyways. So, yeah, so it could be, so your question should be, could it come out of the SU surplus? Because we do move some SU surplus forward.
Yes.
So you want to ask that question?
Ask that question.
The SU is having a surplus as well?
Yeah.
Projected,
we could be deficit spending. I'm looking at, we have some unknowns with some of the Medicaid billing and extra excess.
Do you have one of those for everybody?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we
And
do that so
so
everybody can do
I
that?
would hate, I mean, you do have some surplus from this past year that we're just finishing the audits. I think we're gonna be potentially a little bit, might need some of that.
it would have to be in the super.
Yeah, it would have to be in the super's budget.
Well, right, I'm looking at the super's budget. Let's see.
Right, so my question is, if the super's budget is gonna be $9,000 to the bad, and we didn't hire this service person, well, because that's under MTSS. Yeah,
Some of this could be attributed to our cybersecurity expenses that were unanticipated, which I think were costing about $25,000 this year.
And the deductible on some of this coverage was significantly high.
Yeah, and so,
and that's a reason why we need to do something.
it's another reason why.
It's one, it's one of our
Yes.
motivators.
There might be one you have to eat.
Well, we're gonna eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
So Peter, does that answer your question? So basically, they're projecting maybe a loss of about $10,000 in the SU, in the super's budget. We can't take it out of the MTSS budget because that's a separate. But let me ask you this though, this is just for this year. Is there a surplus carried forward that you're projecting out of the?
The surplus that was carried forward is the 477,327 on the first column. That was the unaudited, although the audits are getting finalized, and that is the number. So that is what you have left in the super's budget that ended fiscal year 24. And so you're just eating into that with your deficit spending this year. So there is some, if you wanted to do that,
So you're predicting about 467 even with the 10,000.
yes.
And how much in the budget proposal that you gave us, how much in the superintendents were we gonna use of that in possible surplus? Did you have any of that accounted into?
Of the things that are the expenditures.
In our budget,
When you put the budget together,
Mhm.
right? So you were looking back then at around 470,000 in surplus.
Yeah.
Did
I
we,
did not,
we
we
did
are
not,
using 100,000 for next year's budget. I believe Dan made that motion
right.
to use 100,000 of that.
Okay, so there is $10,000 still there if we
Yes.
needed it.
Yes.
So yes, the answer to your question, and it's a little confusing, but yes, there is some surplus funds in there. So we could try to not increase the budget. We could leave the budget where it's at for the superintendent. And if everything goes very well, there would definitely be enough to cover it. If something very bad happens, like that security breach was worse than we thought, we may have to look to raise rates again next year. But yes, we could. There is money in there. I mean,
Rich?
yes.
I mean, I don't want to step in if Peter has something to say because.
Are you all set? Okay, he's all good. So you're next.
So I'll just say we've been very responsible in our budgeting here, and I really would feel more comfortable if we put this in the budget. It is something that has come up as an issue for us several times. And I think responsible budgeting means that we put it in our budget and not use surplus on this, especially given what we just heard about our surplus. I'd feel more comfortable having it in.
Okay.
Just me.
No, that's fine. Anybody else here before we go? Paul, you all set? Dana and Joe? Emily, you said, do you have anything else, Emily, not on that particular?
No, thank you.
Okay, Al, Kate, Dan, or Rachel?
All good here.
Okay, so there's a couple ways we can go about doing this. We could either make a motion to add 10,000 to the super's budget if we want to upgrade do that for the web, and then we would have to make a motion to adjust the MTSS budget, and we need a motion to adjust the super's budget if you want to do that. Or we can, let's deal with the MTSS first.
These numbers are in the budget that's she's presenting.
That was sent to you over the weekend.
Right.
So, okay.
So, but we need to approve them. There's
Right. You need to adopt the budgets. Yeah.
Right.
That's what you're
So
talking about.
let's do the easy one first. Let's do the MTSS budget. Okay, because we know that was reduced. We voted to change the structure, the organization. So the MTSS budget would be, somebody should make a motion to, if you want to approve it, to approve an $8,311,321 MTSS budget.
So moved.
Who was that?
Rachel.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Paul seconds it. Is there any discussion, Rachel? Since you made the motion, you get first comment or question or statement.
No, I like the reorganization, and I don't think it's any wasted money.
Paul, you? Nothing. Anybody here? Peter, Dana, you all set? Sir?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll come back to you if you want. TV land, Dan, Emily, Al, Kate. Everybody good? Okay. Peter, last going once?
No, I don't know.
Okay. And I'm not pushing, I want to give you the chance to speak. Okay, so you all ready to vote? All those in favor of approving a $8,311,321 MTSS budget, please signify so by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. It appears to be unanimous decision in the affirmative. No?
No, sorry.
Oh,
Sorry. Internal thoughts.
okay.
My bad.
No, it's fine because I'll do a roll call vote if anybody doesn't think everybody voted aye. So I would say it's a unanimous vote in the affirmative. So then the super's budget. On the superintendent's budget, we had a $2,098,550 budget. The recommendation is to move that to $2,108,550. Would somebody like to make a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second.
I'm gonna give it to Dana. He jumped right on that. So Joe or Dana, any discussion, comments?
No.
Peter, Paul, Go ahead, sir.
Yes, I know that it's possibly promiscuous, but I don't think that we should make this increase. Sounds like we could have that it may not even be needed according to Matt, and we could have it in a surplus.
Can I respond to you for a second?
Yes, please.
It's not going to be paid unless there's time that's actually put in outside of the work. It's not an automatic payment, it's a holding, and it could be blended into a surplus if the employees don't have to work outside of their regular working hours to pay, to make this happen.
And I get that part, but, well,
Is that you?
that,
Hold my calls, please.
Is that on TV?
you work here.
I move somebody gets that.
Okay, Peter, I'm sorry, folks, Peter has the floor and he's not done, so go ahead, sir.
I get that this could go into a surplus if it was not used, but it is still money that we are asking for the taxpayers to give to the supervisory union. And we, again, bringing back to the larger discussion at the state, don't even know what's going to happen with our surpluses potentially in the next couple of years. So this is potentially money that we are asking from the taxpayers that we will then lose sometime in the next couple of years if we don't use it. So to me, it's just not wise asking, like we're asking for money that the taxpayers do not need to give to us. It's purely, please, just in the case. And I where we are with our budgets, I'm not comfortable doing just in case, please.
Can I just respond to that?
Yes.
So again, in the past, and you can see that we do run surpluses and we do have some surplus funds. And I feel really confident that what we've seen over the last several years, over the last few superintendents, is that if they don't need to spend it, they don't. But it's better to have something there in case we go over, because if we needed the money and didn't have anything, we would have to borrow, and borrow costs us more. And this is a minor amount. $10,000 in a $2 million budget is a very low percent. So it's a very good point. But just remember too that we don't usually see the SU office just spend money because they have it. There's a lot of federal agencies and a lot of government agencies that, their motto is we have to spend it all and then some, because if we don't, then we can't ask for it next year. And that's something I feel very confident that I've never seen out of our superintendent's office. And we've never seen it out of the school boards I work with. I can't speak to all the other school boards. So I do give our administration a lot of credit for not just because it's there, we have to spend it. But it's a really good point too, and I do appreciate it. So are you all set, sir?
I'm all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think we covered everybody in here, right, Paul? You were good? Anybody in TV land? Emily, Al, Rachel, Kate? I forgot somebody. Dan. How could I forget Dan? You guys all set?
I'll just stand by what I said before. It's responsible budgeting.
Okay. That's right. You did speak already. I'm sorry. Okay. So we have a motion made by Joe, seconded by Dana.
Dan has his hand up.
Oh, Dan, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just realized I think I'm going to vote no on this motion because I sympathize with the fact that the $10,000, we have 400 and some in possible in fund balance. And I do think that the 10,000 can be absorbed by that without negatively impacting the resources of the SU.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Anybody else who hasn't spoken? Okay, I'm going to ask all those in favor of the motion this would be to approve the superintendent's budget of $2,108,550. All those in favor, please signify so by saying aye.
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 Okay, I don't believe we have a unanimous vote, So I'm gonna do a roll call vote, so you guys are gonna have to bear with me. Meredith, are you ready? I gotta find my list. I'm gonna start with,
Yes.
okay, so I'm gonna start with Joe.
Yes. Aye.
Joe is an aye. Joe, aye. Dana?
No.
No. Peter, I'm sorry.
Nay.
Peter is a nay. Is that the same as a no?
Yes.
Okay.
Wait.
Paul?
Aye. It's old English.
Paul is an aye. Emily?
Aye.
Al? Is Al still there?
He is.
Oh, I missed it out.
We didn't hear you, Al.
Aye. Sorry.
Al's an aye. I'll go to Dan.
Nay.
Rachel?
Aye.
Kate?
Aye.
I show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I show 6 ayes and 3 nays. And that should be 10 of us? 5, 2, 5, yeah, 10. Okay, so the motion does carry 6-3.
He doesn't vote unless he has to.
I vote to create or break a tie. It doesn't matter.
All right.
So
So
I
yeah,
got-
the last two are no changes. So.
Yeah, hang on.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Got another meeting coming up soon.
I know, I'm trying to get this going. So we do, because our vote last time, a couple meetings ago, was to reopen the SU budget. We do have 2 other budgets that there are no changes to. So I would like to make it official to have motions to those effect. So that early childhood special ed, ECSE, that budget was approved last time at $416,167. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Would somebody like to make a motion to approve that budget?
So moved. This is Dan.
Thank you, Dan. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion by Dan, a second by Dana. The D boys got it. So, any discussion from anybody?
No.
No. Dan, you all good? Okay, anybody going once, twice, y'all ready to vote? All those in favor of the ECSE budget at $416,167, please say aye.
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 Are there any nays? It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. The fee-for-service budget, again, is one we used to never vote on, but it's gotten so small that we've actually voted on it. And so that is in the amount of $853,793. And just so everybody understands, that really isn't, the SU doesn't pay for that based on everybody's percentage. That's paid on if you use the positions, and it's mostly, I believe, West River doesn't use a lot of that because they have enough to staff everything. A lot of that is, some of it's food service, technology, and specialists at different.
So West River uses it for transportation. West River uses it for after-school programming. West River uses it for a guidance position and a PE position. And there's also professional development and an ELL teacher. So West River has quite a bit in the.
Okay, I lied. Sorry, folks. So anyways, that budget's $853,793. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve that?
Make motion to approve the fee
FS.
for service.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second it.
And Dan seconds it. You guys, any discussion from the Double D boys?
Nope.
No? Okay, who remembers who the M&M boys were? You know? No? Okay, if there's no discussion from anybody, the M&M boys? it was Maris and Mantle when they were running for Babe Ruth's record. They did TV shows and stuff, pretty big.
A little before my time.
Not much before my time. So, anyways, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? It appears to be a unanimous decision in the affirmative. It is. Bob asked if maybe we could postpone the meeting and do another half hour, 45 minutes, so West River doesn't get to meet, but I just told him we couldn't do that. So we do have a meeting March 26th. Those boards that haven't done the evaluation for the superintendent, please make sure that's done. I was hoping Allison was going to be here again to tell us how many still needed it, but I'm not sure. So I have nothing else unless there's something else we're missing, the most important motion of any meeting.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Joe.
Second.
You have a second, everybody's in favor, even though we don't have to vote. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you at the end of March. Good luck with your